crypto warriors, changing our world day by day. The way of the crypto warriors, can't rely on the bankers, no way.
Good morning, Bix Weir, roadrunner.com with your morning horn disease, your sip of chaga coffee. Oh, I love looking at this graph. This is the this is the 50-year chart on silver. Basically going back to 1971 when we went off the gold standard. It affected silver, obviously. And right here, although the intraday level of silver did hit 49.95 or something like that. Didn't quite hit 50, I don't think. It was really close, but it closed. It has never closed over 50, and that was 1980. They'll say it was the Hunt brothers trying to corner the market. Hunt brothers had about 100 million ounces of physical silver and 110 million ounces of COMEX futures contracts that they were going to take delivery of. That's when that's a problem the Hunt brothers found themselves in. They were playing in the bankers' game. The bankers control the futures and options. They control the rules of that game. So by accumulating all the physical silver, that was a smart move. By getting greedy and buying futures to augment your stash, thinking that the COMEX is going to play by the rules and give you delivery of another 110 million ounces of silver, that's where they fucked up. And that's where they got destroyed. So, the COMEX changed the rules, shut down any sellers only, any buyers only sellers could transact in silver, and it got screwed up. A couple months later, silver price was down to around $10. And we all know what happened after that. We had a long bear market in the price of silver from 1980, probably all the way to 2003, 2004, when it finally broke over $5 again, and we started the next bull run. Now, all these are fake. Once you know that in the early 1970s, that's when the computer programs that Alan Greenspan wrote to rig all markets kicked in. So that was pure control from 1980 to about 2000. That's when Greenspan himself tried to create as many bubbles as possible as head of the Fed. Back in the early 70s, he was just head of the Council of Economic Advisors, reporting to Gerald Ford, and ultimately Arthur Burns, the head of the Fed, was his mentor. That's how Alan Greenspan got to be famous. Is he was the best computer programmer back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. He was a financial computer programmer. Bravo, Mr. Greenspan. I say bravo because he did something that no other central banker, no other politician was able to do. Prolong an unbacked fiat monetary system when faith and trust is gone. Faith and trust was gone in 1980. That's when we started to see hyperinflation. Alan Greenspan figured out, hey, if we rig the gold price and the silver price, we can do whatever we want. We can spend as much money as we want. And that's exactly what was done. And then coming to 2000, when Greenspan became the head of the Fed, 2 months later, there was a computer crash on the Dow Jones and all the stock markets. And that was Alan Greenspan clicking his mouse. And that's the crash known as Black Monday, the crash in 1987. Fast forward to 2000, when they let the tech companies go crazy, and then you had that crash. But that was kind of under control. It could have wiped out the system, but they didn't let it. It wasn't big enough. And then we move on to 2008, where in 99, they let all the derivatives go off the books. Everything was off the books derivative-wise. And then you had the crash of 2008, which is right in here. And silver was ready to rock, about to hit $20, then gets slammed down. Remember, this is all on a computer program. Then we had an issue. In order to get past the crash of 2008, because the largest bank, one of the largest banks in the world, I don't know at the time it was the largest bank in the world, JP Morgan, took over Bear Stearns' silver short position. They got a $30 billion guarantee from the Treasury or the Fed, one of those, that they won't lose money on the original silver they took over. I think that was the maximum potential loss on the silver. But Jamie Dimon didn't close out the position. The idea was to close out the position. That's what the CFTC told them behind the scenes. We were told this by Bart Chilton. They said, you have to close out that position or we're not going to extend the waiver. They gave him a waiver to have way too much silver concentration. Jamie Dimon did not close out the position with Blythe Masters. But what they did do is orchestrate the 2011 silver spike again to $50. The idea was to get as many people in as possible into silver, the weak hands, and then slam it down and create a new fake bear market, which is exactly what they did. They put a guy named Bill Daley, Jamie Dimon's head of his SWAT team. That's what Jamie Dimon called it back in the day. They put a guy named Bill Daley to be the chief of staff to President Barack Obama. Chief of staff pulls all the strings. Barack Obama didn't do anything, but Bill Daley, of the Daley crime family, by the way, out of Chicago, did manage to, as soon as he got in, him and JP Morgan let the price rise from $20 to $50 and then slammed it down and destroyed everybody, all done with computers and derivatives. And in the meantime, they got out of their silver short position and went long. And during that time, they were loading up on physical silver. Brilliant move. Short the crap out of silver, unlimited, because the regulators aren't going to do anything to you because you're part of the cabal. Short it for, 8 years and soak up all the silver you can get your hands on. Over 1 billion ounces of silver Jamie Dimon had collected during that time, that after the post-2011 spike. And right after he was done with his job, they set the price. This is Bill Daley, Obama's guy. He left the position. Chief of staff got passed on to the next guy. Job well done, Bill Daley. You managed to get a massive amount of people into silver and then destroy their lives. Congratulations. Jamie Dimon, bravo to you, buddy. Nice job. So we've been in this artificial bear market. But if you look at it as a closing, you think, oh my God, look at the peak. Clearly, we're getting to another peak. We don't know what that peak will be. It's hard to put this genie out of the bottle because back in 2008 or 1980, back in 2011, those were situations where nobody even thought that the world would default on the unbacked fiat monetary system. It wasn't even a twinkle in people's eye. Maybe guys like Jim Sinclair knew about it, but there was very few people. Warren Buffett knew about it, who knew just how fragile an unbacked fiat monetary system is. Faith and confidence is all it is, and it's kind of crazy when you think about the amount of faith and confidence in your government these days, in your politicians and your regulators. There's zero faith and confidence, and yet we have a faith and confidence unbacked fiat monetary system. That's where we're headed. So this next spike is going to be massive. I will not tell you when to sell. I will not recommend it selling. I would recommend trading things in the future for silver. As silver goes up into the 500, 600, 5,000, 6,000 range, you're going to want to trade things, get some stuff for your investment. But what you don't want to do is go back into fiat money. You've done that. Been there, done that. Once faith and confidence is lost in fiat money, it's over. That's the end game. So then we're going to have to move into some other type of monetary system. The United States is lucky because we have a constitution that states that only gold and silver will be used as money. And I think that's where we're headed. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Now, on a personal level, yes, you can use anything you want as a means of exchange. It won't be the money of the United States, but unless we change the law. But cryptocurrencies will be used, is the greatest barter instrument. It's a barter middleman that has nobody in charge of it. That's the beauty of it, the best ones. And then from that position, Bitcoin was the first. I'm more a fan of Litecoin if you're going to use it as a means of exchange. But there's plenty of good ones. There's also plenty of crap. Tether should have been put out of their misery a long time ago. Put out of our misery a long time ago. They haven't been yet. That's the big play that the riggers want to do. The very last gas slam down will be Tether. They're going to say Tether's illegal. So what happens? Everybody's like, oh my God, the cryptos will crash so much if Tether's illegal. Will it? Anybody who has Tether will be racing to get out of Tether, not into fiat money, but into another crypto. You get out of Tether into like Bitcoin, Jesus, the world goes crazy with Bitcoin. But again, these exchanges will just shut down when that crisis comes. So I don't know what's going to happen with cryptos in this transition. I know you want them in your own possession. Figure out which of the cryptos are going to be useful in the future. Which of the cryptos will be useful in the future? Will gold and silver be useful in the future? I think gold and silver will be useful in the present and the future, especially silver. If we have any kind of economic system at all after the crash, silver will play a massive role. So that's, I mean, all my crypto loving fans only go by what they've experienced in cryptocurrencies. 100, 10x. Yeah, this one's going to go 100x, 1000x. You're shot to be rich and famous. If you hold physical silver during a global unbacked fiat monetary collapse, you're going to laugh at those numbers. 1000x, psh, I got silver. 10,000x, 100,000x. Nobody knows the price of silver. It's been suppressed for 170 years. So all you crypto guys out there, you're going to need some silver for the transition. I don't know how long it'll take for the cryptos to really kick in, because most people don't have cryptos still, believe it or not. And the regulators are doing everything they can to get you out of even thinking about alternatives to the U.S. dollar. So this clip is making the rounds. It's Gary Gensler at his MIT course. They're all online, by the way. You can listen to Gary Gensler talk about cryptocurrencies. He definitely knows about them. But the problem is, as the head of the SEC now, he's been saying they are all securities. But listen to what he said way back when in 2018.
So we already know in the U.S. and in many other jurisdictions that 3/4 of the market are not ICOs, or not what would be called securities. Even in the U.S., Canada, and Taiwan, the 3 jurisdictions that follow something similar to the Howey test that we've talked about, 3/4 of the market is non-securities. It's just a commodity, a cash crypto. So you'll hear debates about initial coin offerings and what's a security and what's not a security. Relevant and important debate. But for 3/4 of the market, it's not particularly relevant as a legal matter.
Okay, Gary Gensler. And what has Gary Gensler been saying all along when he got to a point where he could regulate these things? Listen to this.
Ether is a security. Clearly, an asset cannot be both a commodity and a security. Do you agree?
Actually, all securities are commodity under the Commodity and Exchange Act. It's that we are excluded commodities. But I would agree that a security cannot be also an excluded commodity and an included commodity. I'm sorry, Chair, just to talk about the Commodity Exchange Act more precisely.
Okay, so do you recognize, how would you categorize Ether then?
Look, I think that the general sweep of what Congress did, not just in the 30s, but as amended.
I'm asking you, sitting in your chair now, to make an assessment under the laws as exist. Is Ether a commodity or a security?
Without speaking to...
Notice how he's shaking now. I mean, we just haven't said 3/4 of all cryptos are not securities. And now he's trying to argue that everything's a security.
To anyone.
I know you've repeatedly said you're not going to speak to one, except you've spoken to one, Bitcoin. So I'm asking you to speak to a second one, the second largest market cap here.
And speaking to the tokens, there's 10 to 12,000.
So he doesn't say ever. How are people supposed to deal with owning cryptocurrencies if you don't know if they're a commodity, if they're a security, or if they're money? He says Bitcoin is money. Money is not a commodity. It's not a security. Do you pay tax on your U.S. dollars gains and losses? I wish you can write off the purchasing power of the dollar on your taxes, because you're losing money on your investment just because of the depreciation of the dollar. Gary Gensler, it'll be really interesting to see how this all shakes out. Ultimately, he'll be fired at some point. They're trying to legislate him out now. But at the end of the day, if what I think is going to happen happens, which is the bank failures, and I'll get to that in a second, there will be no SEC. There will be no stock market, bond market. Those all require money to function. There will be no money. See what I'm saying? Our money today is a debt instrument. It's a Federal Reserve note. We've gone away from asset-type money. If you're sitting there with $1 million, you have $1 million IOU from the Fed based on nothing. They can turn that purchasing power of $1 million into $50 overnight with a click of a mouse. Ultimately, when this is all over, nobody will have any kind of unbacked fiat currency that would be worth anything. It'll be real interesting how it goes down because nobody really knows. There's $2.5 quadrillion worth of derivatives that is sure to destroy everything. Yes, your 401k will not be there. Your stocks, your bonds, nothing will be there. Nothing would survive $2.5 quadrillion failure because no bank would be open. They're all fractionally reserved. You know, people ask me all the time, I'm going to buy the dip. Bix, I'm going to buy the dip. When the banks crash, I'm going to buy the dip, buy all these cheap assets. That's assuming that the Fed clicks a mouse and creates a dip. What if they say, screw that, I'd rather have hyperinflation? And they bail out everything, which is probably what they're going to do, given Silicon Valley Bank and all the other bailouts they've done lately. So how does the system end if they go to hyperinflation? Hyperinflation is an odd thing. It's an understanding by the people that their money, the money they have, the unbacked fiat pieces of paper they have, is not going to be worth the same tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So what do? They try to turn that money into goods and commodities. How do they do that? They go out and try to buy it. What's available? Can I get any silver? Can I get any gold? Can I get any house? Can I get any food? Can I get anything? People be racing to Amazon to buy as much stuff as they can get because that dollar is not going to be worth the same in the next week or two. That's how hyperinflation happens. And if they control all prices with computers and derivatives, how is this going to go down? Nobody really knows because we've never been here. The whole entire world has never been on a global unbacked fiat monetary system. But this is it. We've seen crashes. Zimbabwe's people's favorites. The German hyperinflation. Argentina. We've seen currencies collapse, but not on a global scale. They went from one currency to the other. Usually it's the US dollar. So Zimbabwe has been using the US dollar because they can't figure out what they're going to do when they create money and they hey, I can run this printing press. I'm going to add 5 more zeros to this and I'm richer. Obviously, that's not the way to go. Now they want to go to a cryptocurrency type gold-backed Zimbabwe dollar. The problem is they're not monetary experts. They're monetary thieves. So it won't work unless they have a decentralized blockchain, limited amount they can print, all the things that make Bitcoin great. You can say you're backing it with gold, but the minute people go to cash in their Zimbabwe dollars for that gold, the Zimbabwe government's not going to give them the gold. That's third-party risk. Anyway, so all this is going down right now. And the Republicans seem to have a deal amongst themselves. I saw the headline. There appears to be a deal. McCarthy makes late-night concessions on $4.8 trillion debt limit package. I'm like, wait a minute. That's just the Republicans agreeing with each other. Do you think that the Democrats are going to agree to anything the Republicans say? No. You think Joe Biden's going to sign off on a Republican deal that they barely got? Of course not. It won't make it through Congress. It'll make it through the House. Maybe. It looks like he's got a deal through the House. It won't make it through the Senate. And Joe Biden said he's not signing anything unless it's a blank slate of $4 trillion that he can do whatever he wants with. And what is this? What is this $4.8 trillion package? Is insane. 4.8 trillion. Why not quadrillion? Why not decatillion? Why not a Google amount of money? Where's a Google? It's like one with a million zeros after it, something like that. The insanity has hit peak insanity. Now, where's it going to break is the question. I think on the banking side. First Republic tumbles after deposits plunge more than expected, borrows $100 billion from the Fed, FHLB, and JP Morgan. What will the FDIC do? FDIC has maybe 1% of the money for bailouts that they would need. They would need 99% more money. Are they going to get it? I don't know. Probably not. The Fed will have to go direct. Look at First Republic deposits. And this is what I talked about last couple of days, that First Republic would have to declare where they are. They lost half their deposits. Now remember, when a bank loses half their deposits, they're leveraged 10 to 1. Now what are they going to do? They have to massively sell off a massive amount of assets or somehow get $100 billion to restock. What are they going to do? Obviously, they're going to sell assets. And I think that's what they just announced that they're going to do. They're going to have to sell assets because right now, according to their official numbers, they are a bank way, way, way overextended. And there's rules about this. That's why everybody had to come to the rescue. Now, what happens to, this is just one bank. What happens to the next mid-tier bank? All the mid-tier banks are going. Thousands of banks are about to go down. Is the Fed going to bail them all out? Absolutely, it has to. They're going to just say blanking, everybody's deposit is covered. And what does that tell you? The Fed can create money out of thin air and nobody gives a shit. Another way that you can look at hyperinflation. On a side note, Japan's iSpace shares crash on lunar lander fail. The Japanese tried to land a lunar lander on the moon. Don't they know that's impossible? It is. At least with our technology. Yeah, we did it, a dozen times or so back in the 1960s where we put people on the... We can't do that today. NASA had stated, we lost the math. That's what their answer was. Why haven't we gone back to the moon in 50 years? We lost the math. That's what they said. I kid you not. That's what they had to say. We lost the calculations on how to do it. Does anybody think that the general public is the dumbest thing ever? I mean, who believes that? Have we gone to the moon? I think we have, but not in that little tin can that they have at the Smithsonian. Not with the technology that we supposedly had in the 60s. I think we had much better, way better re-engineered technology from Roswell, or maybe that space aliens just came down and gave us a ship. Say, hey, go where you want. Go to Mars, go to Jupiter, go to other planets. We don't know. But the stupidity of thinking that we can't get to the moon today when we got there no problem in the 60s and 70s. This stupidity of people. Actually, I blame the people who made the announcement, NASA. We lost the math. You have massive computers now. The computers back in the 60s, they were nothing. They were these huge, massive things that I have more on my iPhone, more calculating power. And they still can't figure out how to get to the moon. Or it's all bullshit. And we're up in space already. Why do you think Trump created the Space Force? I have night vision goggles. I've seen them. Anyway. And speaking of insanity, RFK Jr. responds to the DNC's plans to skip primary debates. The deep state people who control Biden, they love Biden, and they want him to be the next president because he's so easy to control. So the DNC, the Democratic Party, decides we'll have no debates at the primary. It's just, can you imagine Joe Biden debating anybody on the planet? That's why I'm like, there will be no election in a couple years. There will be no election. We won't even get there. This insanity has to break apart, and it is. Anyway, that's what I got for you today. Go to roadtoruda.com. See if you can get yourself a silver Ruda Lives coin. 1 year subscription to the private road at the Road to Ruda. Go check it out. Go to roadtoruda.com, click on subscribe today, and you'll see that this is Ruda, also known as Root A, which is a computer programming term. In Fortran, Alan Greenspan programmed the first banking programs using this, knowing at some point the control mechanism would have to turn off. I think we're at that point, or very soon. This is Bix. I'll talk to you later.